Agent Hipkiss, I'm going to pick up right where we left off.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you take a moment and glance at those documents that we didn't?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you're looking at the Cellbrite reader where all of the data from the phone is located, one way you can sort the data is by data type. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so if you look at the user accounts section of data, it will show you anytime a user account was associated with this phone. Is that right?
Yes, it doesn't say exactly when, but it just associates that particular account with the phone, meaning that it was likely accessed at some point in time.
Right. And as you testified earlier, you could then go and do further research elsewhere or on other places on the phone or external records to figure out when it was used. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to direct attention to Defendants 3. Can you please describe what we're looking at Defendants 3?
Yes. Defense Exhibit 3 is a screenshot of a Facebook Messenger account for Rosebelly Flores.
And is this an accurate copy of what you would see on the reader when you're looking at the cell phone extraction?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to move Defense Exhibit 3 into evidence.
No objection.
3 is admitted. You skipped 2, correct?
I
Yes,
didn't miss
you-
2. Okay, that's fine.
I skipped 2, and in fact, thank you, Your Honor. Defense Exhibit 2, which one is that?
That is the Facebook account for Gocho Franco.
Gojo Franco. And does this appear to be an accurate screenshot of what information is captured on the Cellbrite reader report?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time we'd like to move Defense 2 into evidence.
No objection.
2 is admitted.
And then lastly, Defense 4, can you describe that for us?
It is a Facebook account associated with Diego Jose Ibarra.
Okay. And does this appear to be a fair and accurate copy of the information contained on the Cellbrite reader report?
Yes.
This time we'd like to move Defense 4 into evidence.
No objection.
4 is admitted.
Now, Detective, I'm going to hand you a document for you to review, but don't say anything in the record about it just yet.
Thank you.
So, Agent Hipkiss, I don't want you to go into the content, but can you validate the Defense 5's report that you wrote,
Yes.
and everything in that report is accurate to the best of your recollection?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time we're not admitting Defense 5. It may become relevant later in the trial, but I just wanted to be authenticated while the agent was here. The last questions I have for you, Agent Hipkiss, are about Diego's phone 1B11.
Yes, ma'am.
That phone took the longest for agents to get into, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain why that was?
Because we did not know the passcode for that particular device, and it was originally seized by University of Georgia Police Department, and they attempted to extract it on their end initially using a gray key, which caused the device to essentially power off and power back on. In that particular instance, it becomes more difficult to crack the passcode, which would ultimately be the reason why it took longer to get into the device.
Okay. And you eventually were able to get into it using the software that the FBI had available to it.
Yes, our digital forensic examiner, Special Agent Candace Hunter, was ultimately able to get into the device in August.
And you would agree with me that 1B11 doesn't have much, if any, location data on it?
No, but as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't surprise me in that particular model of phone. It's a Motorola cell phone. As I mentioned earlier, when you compare them, I would compare in layman's terms, I guess, if you were comparing that particular Motorola cell phone to a Samsung Galaxy phone, that's like comparing a go-kart to a race car. You know, so it wouldn't surprise me that there isn't as much data. It's not collecting as much data as a Samsung Galaxy device would collect from the user.
And I believe you also testified that it was a Wi-Fi phone. like it only had the capacity to hook up to the Wi-Fi?
That's correct. So there was a SIM card in the phone with a phone number that was assigned to it, which was provided service by Verizon. And so we went to Verizon with a search warrant, and yes, it showed that the service had been discontinued or hadn't been used since on or about February 12th, 2024. So at the time of the murder, no, there was no service on that device, cellular service.
Which means you also can't get cell tower location for that device on the day of the murder.
Yes.
And are you aware if Mr. Ibarra was ever asked for passcode to make his phone cracking easier?
I'm not aware. I never personally interviewed him, so I'm not sure if he was or wasn't asked.
Thank you, Agent.
Thank you.
Briefly, in your analogy you gave us, which phone, for the record, so we can be clear, would be the go-kart?
The go-kart would be the Motorola Moto G phone, which was seized from Diego Ibarra.
And which phone would be the race car?
The Samsung Galaxy 14, referred to by us as FBI evidence item 1B7, that was associated with Jose Ibarra.
You are the one who notified UG, I always put an A in it, UGPD, University of Georgia PD, about the grinder messages?
Yeah, actually our analyst did, because the messages were in Spanish and I don't speak Spanish, so she had done a more extensive review of those messages. But yes, I mean, I was involved in some of those communications.
And your analyst would be Ms. Ramirez?
Yes.
And the timing of when those messages were relayed would have been October of 2023?
Yeah, so the content of those messages were between October and November of 2023, with like it appearing to be the last any sort of activity with Grindr on that device being on January 25th, 2024.
The accounts, the Google and the Facebook accounts that of Diego that were found on the device 1B7, for lack of a better term, could not have been accessed after February 10th of 2025 for the Google. Is that right?
Yes.
And is that because the account ceased to exist after that point, correct?
Yes, his account was deleted on January 16th, 2024.
And then the Facebook account was deleted January 25th of 2024?
Yes, the Gocho Franco, it wasn't deleted. It just didn't have activity, IP activity, indicating it was being used after January 25th, 2024.
And that is all I have. Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Beck?
No, Your Honor.
Can you be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
State on the basis Ramirez.
Before we get to Ms. Ramirez, I've got a motion to eliminate that I feel like we need to just take up before we get to the testimony.
Okay.
My understanding is that the state intends to introduce phone calls, is this right, between Jose Ibarra and Laken Franco, and well, just one. It would be for one or for 50, because I don't think that, my understanding is that Ms. Franco is not coming to testify in this case. Obviously, there would be two parts of the conversation. My guess is that the state intends to introduce these phone calls under the theory that they would be admissions by Mr. Ibarra. However, without Ms. Franco here to testify, certainly they would be hearsay. And so we would make an objection on those grounds. We would also make an objection on confrontation grounds. We cannot confront Ms. Franco about the substance of those phone calls and whether or not what is being relayed by the FBI in this case, the FBI translator in this case, would be her sense of what was going on or her intentions as part of that conversation. In fact, in this particular case, we know from some of the evidence that when the police did speak with Ms. Franco, that she had differing views of her intentions of conversations. And so without her here, that would violate Mr. Ibarra's right to confrontation. We also have some information that she was working for the FBI. We would not be able to confront her about any potential biases or favor or threats that she received in that sense. And in addition to that, we believe that Ms. Franco would have the ability to assert her marital privilege as it related to these conversations. And without her here to testify about that, we would not know what the answers to those questions would be. I will save, if we will, a foundation for any, an objection to the foundation for any introduction of those phone calls, but I think that confrontation, hearsay, perhaps marital privilege, and in addition to that, best evidence, if the state intends to introduce simply the translation by Agent Ramirez.
Ms. Jackson, you want to respond?
Yes, I'll start first with the issue regarding the spousal privilege, and I will call the court's attention to the case of Chadwick versus the state. The site on that is 176 Georgia Ave 296, and in that case, the Court of Appeals held that the marital privilege does not apply to jail calls because they are not private conversations. The state would be introducing testimony or foundational element showing that those phone calls are actually preceded by notice that the phone calls are being recorded and they are not private. And as we well know, once a third party or someone else listening into a privileged conversation is introduced and those parties are giving notice, that privilege no longer exists. Regarding the issue around hearsay and the confrontation clause, we call the court's attention to Carter versus the state 302 Georgia 200. That's a 2017 case. And in that case, the Supreme Court addressed the issue of hearsay and confrontation clause arguments in the context of jail calls. And in that case, the Supreme Court actually held that when that testimony or that recording is being offered, both sides of the conversation need to be offered, one side being the admission of the party opponent, the second part of that conversation being used to provide context so that the fact finder can truly evaluate the content of that call. That would be an exception to the hearsay rule and does not violate the confrontation.
I'll give you last say if you want it. I missed the part about it being a jail call when you made your motion.
Well, Judge, I think that there are still issues with confrontation that should be addressed. However, in addition to that is the best evidence rule. And my understanding is that the state intends to offer this conversation through a translation by Agent Ramirez. And if the state is intending to do that, we would ask to be heard on foundational elements, as well as the problem with not having a court certified interpreter to play that. If they were going to play the phone call and have you listen to it, like they would if they didn't need an interpreter, I think that would be one thing. If we were listening to it contemporaneously and having a court interpreter interpret it, that may solve one of their problems. I still don't think that would solve the confrontation issue, but we would ask that it be done like that, not an introduction of a translation by a third party.
Okay. We'll take up that objection as it develops, but I'm going to, at this point, deny the motion in limine. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you raise your right hand? Yes. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to present to this court on the state of Georgia versus Jose Antonio Ibarra shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Will you state your name for the record?
My name is Abesis, Abeis, last name Ramirez, Ramirez.
And how are you employed?
I am a staff operations specialist / tactical specialist with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and I'm assigned to the office here in Athens.
And how long have you been employed by the FBI?
I have been with the FBI since June of 2019.
And what do your duties include?
My duties include providing analytical assistance to drive cases forward for FBI and law enforcement partners.
What does that mean for those of us who don't work in that field?
That can mean anything from maybe listening to jail calls. If they have some people that they're looking into for a case, I'm able to try to find as much information that I can on those individuals so that the agents can make decisions on how to proceed forward.
And do you have any special training?
Yes, I attended a 6-week training in FBI Quantico.
And does part of your duties include translating jail calls or any other content for the
Yes.
FBI? Can you tell us about that process?
So since I speak Spanish, I requested to be tested for reading and listening through the language and assessment unit at headquarters. Once I take my tests, they score and they will deem whether you're proficient or not. And I received my scores and I was marked as proficient.
And are you a native speaker?
Yes, I am.
Where are you from, or where's your family from?
My dad's from the Dominican Republic and my mom's from Costa Rica.
And do you speak Spanish regularly?
Yes, I do.
And do you understand different dialects of Spanish?
Yes, I do.
And what does your proficiency rating allow you to do for the FBI?
My proficiency rating allows me to monitor Title IIIs, review jail calls. I can also review like phones or any documents and provide translations for those.
Okay, and what is a Title III?
Title III is when like a wiretap on a phone.
Okay, and I understand that you were assigned to work on the case involving state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra.
Yes, I was.
And what were your duties what were you assigned to do in this case?
I was assigned to monitor his jail calls and then provide any assistance translating anything that was in Spanish as needed.
Did you by any chance were you called upon to translate some videos made by the defendant on February 22nd? Early
Yes.
morning hours of February 22nd.
Yes, I was.
And for whom did you do those translations?
I did those translations for Special Agent Jamie Hipkiss.
And Your Honor, if I may play the videos.
Give me just a moment. Let me see. Ms. Jackson, is the state's position that Ms. Franco's side of the conversation is being offered for the truth of the matter?
Our position is that the side of the conversation is offered to provide the fact finder with the context and setup of the conversation. Because if you were just listening to the words of one person as part of a conversation, it would be difficult to have an understanding of what that person's intent was.
So your answer is no, it's not being offered for the truth?
That's correct, Your Honor.
I'm
Yes,
not
my
trying to-
answer is no.
not trying to lead you. I'm
No,
just
the
trying
answer
to
is no,
figure
Your
out
Honor.
the answer to my question.
The answer is no. It's being, what I said in my argument, it's being provided for the purpose of showing the context of the conversation.
Okay, and I thought that's what you said the first time. I saw you standing up. I'll hear from you.
Judge, I think inherent in that would be a requirement of the fact finder to believe that what one side of the conversation is saying is true in order to put any meaning on the other side of the conversation. The whole point of understanding it is that you have to believe that both sides are true or neither side's true unless we were able to confront the witness, that was making those statements.
So typically, this is where it becomes interesting with me being the trier of fact, because as we know, typically, I would be listening to the motion in limine and hearing the recording outside the presence of a jury and making a decision. But as we sit here at this point, I haven't heard it. So here's the way we're going to proceed. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to hear it, and then I'll consider whether or not I'm going to consider it. I think that's all I can do.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Right now, we will go forward and play the slides from Agent Hipkiss' presentation that were translated by Specialist Ramirez. Okay, we'll start first with slide 22. There is Spanish on the, can you see the slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and what do those words say?
It's saying one time, Ozuna said.
Excuse me, Judge. Just for clarification purposes for Ms. Beck's previous witness, I believe that she had made a relevancy objection to those lyrics being intended to prove anything as it resulted, or as it happened in this case, or any material fact in this case. And so I don't know if we had gotten a ruling on that relevancy objection before she went there.
We did. I did rule on that. If I can see. I indicate that I did, but I am finding it relevant or denying the objection based on relevance.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Let's go to slide 20. And the translation.
Yes, that is accurate.
And can you read the translation for the court?
Yes. It says, they want to see me fail, but I won't let them. My heart is that of a warrior. That's how the game rules are, and whoever breaks them will pay.
Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Yo necesito ganas, no querer ganar. Si algún día perdiese mi miedo a perder, me duele haber corrido para no llegar. No sé qué camino se me también. Ya me crecieron miedos que nunca toqué. Y me sé respuestas cuando preguntan.
Okay, did you translate this one as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what does this, how did you translate that music?
It says, I need motivation, not wanting to win. And if one day I lost my fear of losing, it hurts to have run, not to arrive. Now I know that the journey is also the goal. I've grown fears that I never educated, and I know the answers for not asking.
Okay, cute. Is that the last one? Okay.
This one says, I started, gave it all, fought, I trusted, but in love I didn't do so well. I kept going, I tried, I fell, I got up.
Thank you. So now let's talk about you monitoring jail calls. You mentioned that that is part of your duties and that you were assigned to do that as part of this case.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you start monitoring jail calls?
I started monitoring Jose's calls March of 2024.
Okay. And then how do you get access to the jail call system?
I was provided a login, a username, and password from an administrative officer with the Clark County Sheriff's Office.
And what system is used to monitor and record jail calls by the Clark County Sheriff's Department?
Securus.
And essentially, how does it work?
So normally I would log on to Securus. I am able to search for someone who's incarcerated at the jail by name or their ID. I'm also able to search by numbers that are dialed, and this helps me narrow down the calls that I'm listening to.
So how would someone from who is incarcerated in the Clark County Jail, how would they go about making a jail call? How does the system work on that end?
They normally would use the wall phone, or they can use their tablet.
And then what would they do to log into?
I've never had to make a call, so I'm not sure.
Are they able to call specific numbers?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And do you know whether or not most inmates have access to the jail call, Securus jail call system?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And once you get your ID, you log into the system. What happens next?
For me,
Yes, you log into the system, and then what do you do next?
I will go to communications. I can search an inmate's name. Usually if there's someone incarcerated, I usually search by last name. So if there is someone else that is incarcerated with the same last name, I will search by the inmate's associated PIN number. That way I can just focus on their calls.
How do you ensure that the inmate number being used is the person that you think you're monitoring?
In the system, each number is assigned a name, so I'm able to see the inmate's name as well as their PIN number.
Is it ever possible for inmates to allow other inmates to use their PIN number or their calls?
Yes, I have seen that before.
And in that instance, how do you verify that you're listening to the right calls from the right person?
So, for example, in his case, if someone is talking in English, then that is a good projection that it's not him. I'm also able to see the numbers that are being dialed, and those numbers are not numbers that he dials on a regular basis.
And in this case, were you able to identify certain callers by their phone numbers?
Yes, I am.
Who were you able to identify?
I was
on these
able
jail
to
calls?
identify Laken Franco.
Okay, and what phone number did she use?
I cannot recall the phone number off the top of my head.
And approximately how many jail calls have you listened to in this case?
I have reviewed approximately 2,000, and I have listened to approximately 400, due to most of them being marked no content.
And who were the talkers or the speakers on the majority of these jail calls?
Jose and Laken.
And did you get to be familiar with their voices?
Yes,
after
I did.
listening to 400 calls? And then how did you classify the calls once you listened to them?
So anytime I would listen to a call, I would either mark it as pertinent, non-pertinent, or no content.
And did you isolate some pertinent calls for this case?
Yes, I did.
And was one of those calls, let's see, I have the other computer here, made on May 11th
Yes.
of May 11th on 2024 at 6:41 p.m.?
Yes.
And how did you translate the language in the calls?
Yes. So normally I listen to a call, I will write a summary in English, and then we will send it to linguists to get it officially translated.
And did you send this call out to a linguist to get translated?
Yes, I did.
And did you review that transcript for accuracy?
Yes, I did.
Okay, let me show you this jump drive. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 243. I've already shown it to the defense. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What is contained on this jump drive?
That contains the call from May 11th, 2024 at 6:41 p.m.
Did you review the transcription in this case?
Yes, I did.
Is that also contained on this jump drive?
Yes, that is also on there.
And did you have a part in helping to create a demonstrative exhibit for the court?
Yes, I did.
And is that also contained on this jump drive?
Yes, it is.
And do you agree with the translation of the transcription of the language as done by the FBI linguist? Is that consistent with what your translation is?
Yes, I do.
And were you able to identify the speakers on the
Yes,
call?
I was.
And who were the parties to this particular call on May
The
11th?
parties on this specific call were Jose and Elaine.
And did you initial this?
Yes, I did.
State will move State's Exhibit 243 into evidence at this time.
Judge, I'm going to renew my objection and add on to that objection. Apparently, especially as it relates to the demonstrative aid and the translation, that this wasn't even done by Asian basis. It was done by, now we've got one more level of people who are not going to be here to testify. And so I would add that on to the hearsay and the confrontation.
Agent Specialist Ramirez testified that she listened to the call herself. She reviewed the transcript of the transcript that was created by the FBI linguist, that she reviewed it for accuracy, that she agrees with the transcript, and we would be permitted to assist the court. We have created a demonstrative aid so that the court can, it's essentially what it is it is a rolling exhibit of the transcript.
Well, I hear you, but I also agree with Mr. Kirby that, I mean, we've now got another layer. I think those were his words. I'm not going to admit it as at this time this way. I mean, y'all can perhaps figure out something else. I don't know, but we've got the linguist. That's the first I've heard about that when you started talking about that. That actually did the translation approved by this witness, and now we're here. So I am going to sustain the objection at this point.
The other option, Your Honor, the other Specialist Ramirez listened to the call. She's already testified that she's listened to the call, that she's translated it herself, and we would have her testify as to her translation of this particular call. It's so quiet. Which she's a certified, we've already established that she's a certified translator for the FBI. She listens to jail calls. She was able to authenticate the authenticity, identify the speakers, identify the method of recording the calls, and based on that, we would submit that she can testify as to what the call said.
You want to be heard further?
Judge, the only thing that I would add, I don't know if we're getting into expert testimony here, or if agent of basis is being offered for that. I think you need a court certified interpreter to do that. You can play the call. As it relates to agent of basis, it sounds like that went to someone who was a specialist in this, and I would probably note that she is not qualified for that.
Well, I'll let you inquire further. You can put out her qualifications if you want to, but what I've heard so far, they've at least put up a prima facie case that she is qualified. So I'll let you inquire about that. So here's where we stand right now. I'm not going to admit it as it's coming from the linguist to Ramirez to hear. However, if I am going to consider it, if there's a foundation laid by this witness as to the translation, I don't think the certified court interpreter as we know them here is required in this situation, but I don't believe so.
And I apologize to Agent Ramirez, saying agent basis, and that's not it.
So with that, do you want to void out her on her qualifications, or? I'm just offering it.
No, well, just unless they're offering Agent Ramirez as an expert in this, in which case we didn't get any of the stuff that we should have gotten, because I don't know that she was originally thought to be offered as an expert. I think it would be more appropriate on cross-examination.
That's okay.
The defense keeps changing the standard. Specialist Ramirez has already testified that she's a native speaker of Spanish, that she has completed the FBI's certification program, which allows her to do work as a translator for the FBI, and that the translation of this particular jail call and all the other ones was done in the course of her duties as a specialist at the FBI.
Are you offering her as an expert?
I am offering her, I could offer her as an expert. I could ask the court to qualify her as an expert in this area, given her qualifications.
Has she testified in court proceedings before?
Actually, she has not. This would be her first time. But if not, she could still testify as the person who translated the call in the course of her duties as a native speaker of the language. And the law does not require. It's a better practice to use a certified court interpreter, but it's not what the law requires.
Want to be heard any further now? No?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you go forward, and I'll leave it to you if you're asking for her to be allowed to testify as an expert or not.
Did you have an opportunity to listen to the translation?
Yes.
Listen to the jail call.
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times did you listen to it?
I have probably listened to that jail call more than 10 times.
And did you make a translation of the jail call?
Yes. When I listen to a call, I normally type up a summary.
And did you type up, did you make notes in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
And in that,
You want to be heard?
yes, Your Honor, you've already stated that, or you've already overruled their objection to our admission of the content of the conversation, in that it's being offered for the admission of a party opponent, and also as in context. This is about the same call on May 11th.
Did I misunderstand your objection?
Yes, Judge. I again, and I apologize for perhaps my confusion. I thought that this was related to the whether or not they were going to offer Agent Ramirez as an expert or not.
I just told her to proceed. So I'll overrule that objection as stated.
But going back to the call, you identified the parties
Yes.
and you were giving the court the context of the call.
Yes. So they were discussing how he had went to UGA to look for work. In the call, they also discussed, Layling had asked him where.
This is if we're going, we can play the phone call, I guess, if we can authenticate this. But if we're just gonna talk about what Laken said, then it's hearsay, and she lives up in New York. This isn't a, my guess is that the FBI has the ability to get her.
So I've overruled the objection based on the reference and the playing of Ms. Franco's and the interpretation of Ms. Franco. So you can continue. It's overruled.
At this time, I'm going to play the call. And Specialist Ramirez, can you listen to the call and then give the court a summary of what the call says?
Yes, I can.
Estados Unidos. Después del tono, por favor, diga Estados Unidos. Gracias. Esta llamada no es privada. Será grabada y podría ser monitoreada. Si cree que debería ser una llamada privada, cuelgue y siga las instrucciones del centro para registrar este número como un número privado. Es posible que usted no oiga ningún sonido de la conversación de sus.
Okay, can you tell us what that was?
At the beginning of every call, there's usually an automated message letting the parties know that their calls are being recorded and that if this call should be private, they should hang up and follow the instructions provided by the jail on how to set up that number.
Llamada, por favor, no cuelgue.
Whoops. Okay, there we go.
Hola, esta es una llamada con cargos revestidos prepagada de un individuo encarcelado en Asbury Park County Jail. Esta llamada no es privada. Será grabada y podría ser monitoreada. Si cree que debería ser una llamada privada, cuelgue y siga las instrucciones del centro para registrar este número como un número privado. Para aceptar cargos y dar su consentimiento para grabar esta llamada, oprima 1. Para no aceptar y pulsa secures.
Okay, what is that?
That is an automated voice saying that the person that he's calling is receiving a prepaid call from an inmate, and then usually they can say their name, they don't have to, and then the call will ring so the other person can pick it up.
Puede comenzar la conversación ahora.
Okay.
He asked her if she's able to hear him okay, and she said yes, that it sounds better. He asked her where were they in the conversation, and she says we were talking about him going to look for the job.
So what is the I'll move on to the next. Okay.
He says that he went inside, he spoke with the girl. She starts yelling, saying that she's fed up.
Okay.
She's saying that she's fed up, that he has her tired, and if he can just tell the truth.
Okay.
She says, are you going to, or are you not going to say the truth? He tells her that he went over there to look for a job.
Okay. Okay.
She continues to ask him what happened with the girl.
Okay.
She tells him, don't wait for me to come and see you because they will not let me see you. Immigration told me that if I step foot over there, I will be in trouble.
Can I make an inquiry? Ramirez reading off of something?
I am not. I'm only
Okay.
able to see the audio that she's playing.
I apologize.
Okay,
She continues asking that she wants to know what happened with the girl.
okay. Okay.
She tells him that he has to know something, and he just continues to tell her, like, Layling, enough, Layling, enough.
Okay.
He just continues to say, okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
She asked him if he had smoked that day, and he said no.
I'm just asking, is there noise in the background? Is that them talking or?
No, usually it can be background noise from a TV or just other inmates in the background.
Okay.
He asked her if she's writing, and she's like, writing what? And he's like, are you writing? And she said, no, I'm not writing. I'm just fed up.
Okay.
He said, you're fed up. Okay, okay.
Oops. Okay, can you?
She said, oh my gosh. And then you cut off mid-sentence, so I can't.
Let me go back a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
He's telling her, yeah, you're fed up. And she's saying, yeah, I'm fed up, and it's your fault.
Okay.
She said that she thinks it's crazy that they don't have anyone else's DNA. They only have his. And she said she doesn't understand how someone can see someone dying and not call 911.
Okay.
He's saying, enough, Layling. That's why I'm telling you. And she's saying, no, 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 no.
Okay.
She's saying that you're not going to come here and lie to me. I know you. You know something. And he's like, okay, Laken.
Okay.
She asked him where was El Gocho when he was out, and he states that he's either in the house or in the bed. Due to the call being a little bit muffled, it's hard to understand which word he's using.
Okay. And I'll stop it right there. Nothing further of this witness.
I'm gonna cross-examine.
No question, Judge.
She be excused.
Yes.
Any objection?
Judge, if I can have this.
Thank you.
Wesley Durkirk, Durkit. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today, the matter of the state of Georgia versus Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please take a seat, state your name, spell the first and last name from Madam Court Reporter.
It's Wesley Durkit, Wesley Durkit.
Where do you work?
University of Georgia Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
I've been there since 2012.
What are your duties and responsibilities there?
Title is an IT security analyst. I'm also an officer with the department. I serve as the lead digital forensics examiner for our investigations.
If you could adjust that microphone into your mouth, I just want to make sure that they can hear you over there and Madam Court Reporter can hear you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So security, say that one more time.
IT security analyst,
Okay.
and I'm an officer with the department, and I serve as the lead digital forensics examiner for the investigations.
What is a digital forensic examiner?
Specialized training role to specifically examine any kind of digital evidence, computers, cell phones, any kind of electronic storage medium to support the investigations.
Tell the court a little bit about your training and education.
Education, I have a bachelor's degree in management information systems, a master's degree in information technology. I'm a post-certified police officer, so Georgia standards for peace officer certification. I have gone through specialized digital forensics training, starting with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glenn County, Brunswick, Georgia. Completed the 8-week curriculum there to go through courses and certifications in mobile device investigations, digital evidence acquisition, Windows computers analysis, and Macintosh forensics analysis for Mac computers. I've completed vendor-specific training for the tools and analysis software that we use in our unit, specifically with magnet forensics and their Axiom software for analysis. I'm a magnet certified forensics examiner. What was Gray Shift for the Gray Key device, for the use of the Gray Key device to extract and analyze cell phones. Gray Shift is now owned by Magnet Forensics. That's why I say it used to be Gray Shift. As well as the Compelson Mobile Edit Forensics Pro software, which is a specialized software and analysis that's specialized in wearable devices, smartwatches, and stuff like that.
Were you asked by your department to do two things. Number one, extract data from a cell phone that belonged to Laken Riley, first of all.
I was.
And were you also asked to extract data from a Garmin watch that she was wearing at the time of her murder?
I was.
And did you do both of those things?
I did.
I'd like to start first with the extraction of Laken Riley's cell phone with Gray Key. Tell us, what is Gray Key and what did you do to her phone?
So Gray Key is a specialized device. It was specialized and created to access iPhone devices originally that we were not able to obtain access to. So it has specialized capabilities to be able to unlock iPhones. In this case, we were provided with the passcode for her phone, so I did not have to use the force unlock feature of it, but it still has advanced features within it to obtain as much data as possible from the phone. So we used it, extracted her phone, and then entered all that into Magnet Axiom for our analysis and reports on her phone.
Start. I'm going to hand you a few documents to do it all at once since I'm up there, but may I have one moment, Council? So I'm handing you a few exhibits. One is 268. Let's do it one at a time.
Okay.
What is 268?
268 is it's a flash drive containing the Gray Key extraction data of Laken Riley's iPhone.
And did you learn that yourself?
I created this flash drive myself and handed it to you.
Thank you. And at this time, Your Honor, the state would move to admit the state's 268, but as with the previous phone extractions, we are not asking the fact finder to consider all of the data on this phone. There is a separate PowerPoint presentation that will be done by another witness, and that will be the data extraction for the phone, for the fact finder to consider. 268 is merely for the record.
Any objection? No. It will be admitted for those purposes.
269, what is 269?
So this is a flash drive containing the extraction of the Garmin Forerunner watch used and created by the Mobile Edit Forensic Pro software, extracted directly from her watch. That report was copied onto this device by me and given to you.
And the state would move to admit states 269.
269 is admitted.
Did you create smaller reports from 269 of the Garmin data watch?
I did.
And how did you do those reports?
So from the extraction of the watch, we get basically the entire dump of data. So I was able to pull data points from the last run that was being tracked on her watch. And I entered all of that data into the SPSS analysis software, which is just a statistical analysis, produces charts and data analysis visuals.
And the Garmin, did it collect her heart rate?
It did.
Did it collect her speed?
It did.
And did it collect her location?
It did.
The location data, was that also sent to the FBI for their analysis as well?
It was.
I want to talk to you about states 270, 271, and 272. Do you recognize those documents?
I do. These are the charts that I created
From Laken Riley's Garmin data?
from the Garmin watch data.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to admit 270, 271, and 272.
Any objection? Thank you. 270, 271, 272 are admitted without
And-
objection.
May, would the court please toggle over so we can publish those documents? May, if you have a difficult time seeing that, let me know because I can come back up to you.
Okay.
Can
I
you
have a
s-
copy myself as well.
Oh, you have
Yeah,
a copy.
yeah.
Do you have a copy of 270?
I do.
All right. Can you see states 270?
I can.
It's a little hard for me to read and I'm afraid to touch this thing to make
Sure.
it zoom. Your Honor, can you see states 270? Okay, and defense counsel, can you see 270? Yes? Okay. So in states 270, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
So on the top graph, that is charting the heart rate logged by her watch. This is from the time frame of 9:08 and 30 seconds on February 22nd, 2024 until the time 9:15 and 30 seconds. And the bottom chart is graphing the location tracked speed of her movement during that time frame.
And why did you break it down into just this basically 7-minute time frame?
Simply for visual purposes. During the entire run that was logged on her watch, it tracked a data point every second that day. So there were over 33,300 data points set and recorded and extracted. So if we put that entire data set in a chart like this to fit on this one piece of paper, it would essentially be a flat line. So we basically just select a time frame that shows some pertinent data. That way we can visually see the peaks and valleys included in the chart in the data set.
So in looking at states 270, can you tell us, first of all, what was Laken's speed and her heart rate at 9:08 a.m.?
So at 9:08, so right at the start, okay.
Yes.
It's hard to read on mine as well. So heart rate at that time was 156, so that's beats per minute for the heart rate. The speed was at, and it tracks in meters per second, to be clear. It's 2.65 is what's logged on the chart. For conversion's sake, that'll go over to 5.9 miles per hour. And for running purposes, that's a 10.2 minute mile.
What about the next data point for speed, which is 2.97? Is that faster than the previous one?
That is moving faster than the previous data point. So 2.97 meters per second. Again, comes down to up to 6.6 miles per hour, or just over a 9-minute mile.
And that particular speed, 2.97, is that the fastest that you see on her run that day?
The fastest was right at the beginning of the run. So it was around just after 9:03. You'll see that on the
States
next.
271?
Correct. Yeah.
So her fastest was 3.45?
3.45, 7.7 miles per hour, about a 7-minute 47 mile.
So going back to states 270, we were at, is that at 9:09 a.m. that it is at 2.97?
It's a little bit after that. I could give you the exact time if I had a minute to dig through the log, but it's shortly after 9:09.
At some point, we can continue to go along this track.
Okay.
But in states 270, did you also note at the time that Laken Riley called 911 from her phone?
Yes, that's the vertical reference lines you see.
At the
Those
top?
are, yes, those are reference lines that we pulled over from the phone log data. So at the time the 911 call was placed, that was at, the actual call went out at 9:11:06. That's that third vertical line you see on the graph.
That's when the call went out, but did she attempt to make it sooner than that?
Yes.
So I want to talk to you about two things. At some point in States Exhibit 270, did Laken Riley come to a complete stop?
Yes.
What was the time that she came to a complete stop?
So the speed went to 0. I think that's notated on the third. Yeah, so in the third chart we have here, 272, is that what it'd be? It comes to a complete stop. Oh, nope, sorry. That was the heart rate.
How about States 271?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thought I had it written down. Yep, wrong chart. So yeah, 9:10:44 was the time the speed went to 0.
What time did she attempt to start making that 911 call?
So the phone logged the phone call application. So the internal phones application started to recognize an attempt to place a call at 9:10:50. That's the second vertical line.
So for record purposes, 9:10:40 to 9:10:50 is how much time?
That'd be 6 seconds.
No.
40 or 44?
Right. It's 9:10 and 44 seconds, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's the speed 0.
Okay.
And
Tell
then-
me the 911 SOS application. I want to ask you questions about that too, but tell me that time.
So the SOS, we initially saw that occur at 9:10 and 39 seconds.
All
and
right,
that's
so-
not referenced on this chart.
Okay, so how much time differentials between those two events, from the time that she comes to a complete stop and the time that she does the SOS function?
So the SOS function was actually initially applied prior to coming to a stop.
Okay, so
Um,
tell
but-
us about that.
So
I'm just looking for the time between the two.
right.
All right,
And I'm just trying to figure out exactly from what point you're talking.
all
So
right.
yeah, 9:10:39, we saw the SOS feature on the phone initially be activated. And by activation, the phone is just recognizing some way to initiate the SOS. There's multiple ways to do it. Long press or 2-button side press. So the side button is a volume button. You can long press that, it'll initiate. From the lock screen, you can hit the emergency call and it'll bring up a dial pad. And there's other features that have to be enabled that we did not see enabled on her phone. So when you see that SOS folder created at 9:10:39, we believe and we understand at that time is when we saw the SOS starting to become manipulated. Then what we see after the speed went to 0 with the phone call app intent to call, that's when the phone application is starting to recognize, hey, I need to start waking up to place a phone call. So from the 9:10:39 when SOS was activated to 9:10:50 when the phone application recognized, you're looking at 11 seconds from those 2 points. The 9:10:50 was 6 seconds after she stopped. So that was the phone call the phone being recognized that it needs to place a call occurred 6 seconds after she came to a complete stop. And then the phone call finally went out at 9:11:06, which would be, what's that? 44, 20, mental math. 44, 54, 22 seconds from the speed 0 to phone call out.
So it took the phone a minute, so well, not even a
Correct.
minute, a few
Yeah,
seconds to recognize the
Mhm.
SOS function and actually make the call.
Right.
Do you know how that works on an iPhone to enable an SOS function to make an emergency 911 call?
Yes.
Can you show us if I hand you my iPhone on the stick?
Mhm.
Show us how that works, and you can show the cord.
All
How-
right. So,
You do that.
so from the lock screen, we would swipe, you get your unlocked dial pad.
The
And
cord.
then from here, oh, sorry. And then from here, you would get the emergency button at the bottom. Hit that, and that will load a dial pad. From there, you would dial 911 and place the call. It's one way.
Okay, what's the other way?
That's the most familiar way for most people with their phone. So from the iPhone, you can select the side button and a volume button, hold, and it brings up the emergency option from that phone, from that display.
And so for the record, did you hold the two side buttons down simultaneously?
Correct.
For that screen to appear?
For this screen to appear.
Okay.
So that's one way. Then if you let go, you'll feel it vibrate. It vibrated in my hand when it brought this screen up. You would slide to place the call. Then on the newer iPhones, hers was a 15 Pro Max, so the latest at the time. If you continue to hold, it will then start a countdown. And it'll go 8-second countdown, and then it'll start vibrating, sounding an alarm, and then place the call automatically. So you have to continue to hold after this screen displays for it to do that.
So there are a few ways that
Correct.
you could do it.
Correct.
Do you know from examining, thank you, I'll take my phone back. Do you know from examining Laken Riley's phone, which method of SOS 911 calling she used?
So from what we have seen and been able to determine, it appears that the dial pad was used.
And I want to talk to you about her heart rate continuation. So
Okay.
I'm going to show you back to State's Exhibit 271. Can you tell us the top graph? What does that depict?
So the top graph in red is the heart rate data, and that's from the time 9:03:42, which also occurred, coincided with the beginning of the tracked activity being the run. And it runs to 9:33:59. And again, this is February 2nd, 2024.
When did her heart rate drop to 0?
So it went to 0 at 9:28 and 23 seconds.
And did it remain 0? And I want to show you 272. Tell us what we're looking at 272.
So 272 is the heart rate from that same beginning time, 9:03 and 42 seconds. And it's tracking all the way to 12:59 and 59 seconds, February 22nd, 24.
And at some point, we see the 0 at 9:28, like you told us.
Mhm.
And then we see what looks like her heart rate going back up at 12:37.
Yes.
What,
So
does that coincide with the CPR?
that coincides with CPR and is tracked based on the body cam footage from our officer arriving on scene.
So if you look at Officer Maxwell's body cam footage, which we've already looked at,
Correct.
at 12:37 p.m., he attempts CPR, Miss Riley, is that
That's
right?
correct.
And that caused, you were able to see that in the Garmin watch?
Yes.
Between the 9:28 a.m. and when Officer Maxwell shows up at the scene, is there any movement in her heart rate?
No. The
It
heart
remains
rate-
0.
Correct.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Pastor Sam.
Good afternoon. I really just have a couple questions to clarify something. We spoke on the phone a few weeks ago, right? Just for the court reporter, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Thanks. And I thought you told me then that you thought that the 911 call had been placed not through the keypad, but through the.
Correct. So in further analysis, finally following up with some forensic consultant solutions with Magnet Forensics, where we use our analysis software, we were able to find some more detailed information in it's called a P list, which is just a stored data file that's holding all of this data. And we found the setting in there that determined that the multi-press that we were originally thinking was, that feature was actually not enabled on her phone. So then a little bit deeper analysis into what was actually loading at the time, we could see that the dial pad for the emergency call was loaded on her phone at the time that the call was being placed.
And when did you find this out?
2 weeks ago.
So obviously after I spoke to you.
Mhm.
And, but, okay, so caught me by surprise because I'm going by the report that I guess was prepared back. When did you first do your analysis?
We initially started working this initially right after, so February.
Okay. Because in that report, you indicated that at 9:10 and 39 seconds, the call was begun through the SOS process.
Well, the SOS application feature set was activated. The phone call did not occur until that 9:10 and 50.
But in any event, your opinion at the time was that it was not made through the keypad.
Correct.
Okay. And then